Previously in the series, we've talked about the fundamentals of home defense tactics and how to apply a lot of what we're learning to our home environment. Today, we're going to learn even more home defense tips. We're going to start by talking about what happens in a low light environment. How do we use our tactical movement skills, and how do we integrate a flashlight into that motion through the house, keeping our reactionary gap and slicing the pie and moving carefully through the home. We're going to use our knowledge of our home's layout and what we hear as we move through to make the best guess about which direction to focus on when we go around a corner or enter a new room or go through a hallway. And perhaps most importantly, we're going to look at what are some likely confrontation scenarios and the best way to handle getting to your family, dealing with an intruder, and then of course getting your family to safety or having them stay where they are and remain safe while you deal with that potential confrontation inside your home. One of the most challenging tactical movement scenarios is a stairwell. Imagine that you're in your home and you've realized there's probably an intruder on another floor. Your master bedroom may be on a different floor than your children or other family members that you want to ensure the safety of. Or perhaps you're taking the option to escape because you're the only one in the home, but you've realized that to get to the door, you've got to change levels. You've got to go down the stairs or up the stairs. That can be a very challenging situation. Even for a team of highly trained armed professionals, moving through a stairwell safely is one of the most challenging situations you can have for tactical movement. So let's imagine that we were in our bedroom in the early morning hours and we realize that there is an intruder in our home, potentially a threat to our safety or the safety of our family, and we decide that we must move upstairs to check on those kids to see if they're okay, to perhaps barricade with them in a safe room, to bring them to our safe room, or of course to get out of the house altogether. We started in our bedroom where we had all of our gear. We had our cell phone near the bed. We had our firearm and a piece of equipment like this paddle holster that we could put on quickly so that we didn't have to be carrying the gun and potentially pointing it at our family members, but it was here at the ready if we needed it. We've made that call to let the 911 operator know that we have an emergency situation. Of course, we're staying on the line. We're moving with our phone in our hand. At this point, we don't need a flashlight because there's enough ambient light in our home to be able to see where we're moving. But what we have to deal with now is not just the hallways and the corners and the other things we've looked at, but particularly this stairwell. And a stairwell is more dangerous than a regular hallway because it operates in multiple planes. Not only do we have to worry about slicing the pie horizontally, we've also got to vertically be sure that we're not exposing ourselves to danger. So let's take it from, we've been in our room, we've made our call, we've heard a disturbance upstairs that lets us know our kids are in danger and they could very well need our help. We're moving through our home with our firearm in the ready position. We've got the cell phone out. We might put it in our pocket and secure it if we're not going to be talking to the 911 operator. But again, we do not want to hang up. We do not want to disconnect. I have a corner here that's just like any other hallway corner. I'm going to try to maintain a reactionary gap. I'm going to use my one-handed ready position that keeps the firearm depressed so that I'm not pointing it at anything I may be looking at. But I have it at the ready, and I have this arm out here to catch anyone who may come around the corner, to move into a two-handed ready position if appropriate, or of course to extend and shoot in the event that I need to deal with a lethal intruder with my lethal response. So as I approach, I'm going to treat this like a normal hallway, try to have as much a reactionary gap as I can, and I'm slicing the pie. I'm looking to see if there's anything on the stairwell, and as I come around, I'm going to continue to move here. Now at this point, because of the specific construction of this area, I can either bring this hand down into a two-handed ready position because I can anticipate needing a longer shot through one of these open areas if someone were to expose themselves, or I could just leave this hand out and stay in my good one-handed ready position. If I come into a two-handed ready position, I'm still going to keep that muzzle depressed so that I'm not pointing it up at the kids, which we know are upstairs, even though there is potentially an intruder upstairs. We're going to make sure that the firearm stays in a safe direction until we know that we need to orient it towards a threat. As I come around the corner here and begin to look up the steps, because now I've got a hallway with two different dimensions I've got to worry about. Not only do I have to slice the pie horizontally, I also now need to start thinking about slicing that pie vertically because someone could be upstairs waiting for me. And in fact, that's what I'm banking on. Remember, as I get ready to go up the steps, I am going to keep a reactionary gap from that corner with this particular stairwell because it goes up and turns back on itself. It's U-shaped and it's open. Being open, there could be threats in any direction. As a team, I might be able to cover all the conceivable areas that a threat may be, to include just around this corner over here. But because I'm by myself, and because I'm moving, because I need to ensure the safety of my children, I have to presume that the threat is still upstairs. And that's the direction I'm going to move in. Of course, always being ready for someone to appear in this direction and adjust my focus and response. As I go up the steps, I'm going to make sure that I make as little noise as possible. I'm going to try not to brush against the railing or against the wall and let someone know I'm coming with any extra clues. If they're focused on trying to hurt my children or break into their room, I'm going to rely on that focus to distract them and not do anything to call their attention to me. Again, always being conscious of this corner as our most direct and immediate threat, but aware that our most probable threat is coming from up above. This hand is here to catch anyone coming around the corner. We're watching that with what peripheral vision we may have at this point, but our focus can't be here. Our focus has to be where our children are and where we suspect that the intruder is going to be. Of course, in this stairwell, we could even be worried about what's down here. Too many people want to what if and think about what if there was someone out front? What if I was wrong about someone being upstairs and they're actually downstairs on a lower floor? What if there's two people, one's behind me and one's in front of me? We can't afford to do that in this situation. What we need to focus on is why are we moving? We're only moving up the stairs because our children are upstairs. We think there's a threat up there with them. We've got to remember that although there could be a threat behind us, below us, around this corner, we've got to focus on our main objective, which is making sure our children are safe upstairs and that there's no threat hurting them. So that's where my focus is as I approach this landing. Now again, my focus is on this upper landing where I've heard the noises and where I believe that there is a threat and I want to make sure my children are safe. I'm not as worried about this area. As I get to here, I'm actually able to now consider this area clear. Now while we've said you can't clear a house as a single person, what you can do is consider any particular danger area clear. A danger area is any place where a threat could be hiding, such as, until I rounded this corner, right here. Someone could have been stuck down behind this wall, very low, waiting for me to come around. That's why this hand was out. Once I get here, I can see there's no one here. I know this area is clear. Of course, I still have plenty of other danger areas, some of which I'm very worried about because of the probability that a threat is up there in the bedroom. That's where I hear the noise from. That's where my children are. That's my highest probability area. While other areas are potentially dangerous, I'm not going to worry about them nearly as much. For instance, when I get to the top of the stairs, the bedroom to the left, I'll keep this hand up and out in case someone, even a family member coming to me for help, were to pop out from this side, even though my focus is absolutely going to be on this doorway where I hear the threat and where I know my children are supposed to be. As I go up, again, I have to play the odds. The odds are that the threat is where I hear the noise and where I know my children are. I will be turning my back on the downstairs area. I'll be disregarding the stairwell area I've already moved through, and I'm not going to worry as much about the bedroom to my left because I hear the noise coming out of the bedroom to my right. This hand will still stay up to protect me from anything that might come out of that unknown area to my left, be it another person, the primary threat, or even a family member running to me for help. I wouldn't want them running into the firearm. So as I come up, I'm going to be in this position, focused on that doorway, making sure I'm ready to deal with any confrontation I might have. As you can see, stairwells can be incredibly complex to deal with, particularly this one in a U-shape with an open format. But we have to remember what our goal is. Our goal is to make sure that we and our family are safe. If we believe the threat's upstairs because of the noise, because of the options that were eliminated, we have to focus on that and eliminate a lot of the extraneous potential danger areas that don't have as high a probability of hiding a threat. Of course, it's incredibly likely that something could happen in your home during a dark hour. At night, when the lights are off, you may not be able to turn the lights on, someone may be preventing you from turning the lights on, or you may choose not to have the lights on because of the advantage of surprise and the stealth that you get from being in the dark. If someone's in the home and they're not familiar with it and you start turning lights on, they're immediately going to know where you are, and of course it's going to be easier for them to move around. You've got your equipment staged next to your bed. Of course, the most important thing you can do when you know there's an intruder in the house, you know there's a threatening situation going on, is make that phone call to the authorities. Let them know who you are, where you are, what you've heard, and stay on the line. Even if you need to leave the phone right there off the hook so that someone can hear what's going on, or you can scream out additional information while you get the rest of your gear together. Of course, it may be the best choice to pick up your cell phone and use it to make that call so you can keep it with you as you leave the house or go to check on your family. Or maybe just stay barricaded in your bedroom or your other safe room, whatever area that may be. So we've got our cell phone, and we're going to go to our flashlight next. Notice that this flashlight has a lanyard on it. The reason we have the lanyard is so that we can immediately go from using our flashlight to having our hand free and still be able to get back to our flashlight very quickly, whether that's to use a firearm, to pick up a child, or to make or continue that phone call to the authorities. Whatever it may be, we may want to be able to use this hand for more than just the flashlight. So that lanyard on your light is a great idea. You can take a look at some other options that we have in terms of flashlights. This device may look like a great idea when you first see it. If we turn it on, we see that it will stay on, and it's got a little clip. I can actually attach this to my body, whether it's to my shirt or to my belt. One of the problems with this, however, is now that that's on, everywhere I go, I'm lit up, projecting a beam of light in front of me. We're going to talk about flashlight use and the idea of keeping your flashlight intermittent and indirect. Strapping a light to yourself and walking through a dark building is pretty much saying, hey, here I am, come find me. And what we might want to do is not let everybody know exactly where we are at every given moment. We want to stick with a flashlight that we can turn off and on easily. And of course, again, that lanyard is very important to being able to utilize it while we're moving through the house. So we've got our cell phone, we've got our flashlight. Of course, the next thing we're going to want to do in the case of being prepared to deal with a lethal response to a threat that is coming towards us or to a member of our family is to have our firearm. Now, we want to keep our firearm close by. We want to keep our firearm accessible to us. We may or may not want to keep it loaded. In fact, in most cases, we're not going to keep it loaded, but we are going to keep it in a position where we can load it very readily if we need to. We've now got the firearm and we've got the flashlight. If we're in imminent danger, we're going to want to keep the firearm in our hand, one-handed with the flashlight also, so that we can identify what we're seeing throughout the house. If we're moving through trying to find our children or find the exit or make our way to the safe room, and all we have is this flashlight, we're using it to find and identify the things that we're looking for or looking out for in the case of a threat. Of course, we may just have heard a bump or heard one of our children crying or heard something on the other side of the house that we aren't sure if it's a threat, but we certainly want to be prepared in case it is. What you may want to do is keep something like this paddle holster handy so that where you keep your firearm, where you're going to be moving from, if you don't know that there's a threat, but you want to be prepared to deal with one as you move through the house, you can actually take and quickly slip this holster on, be carrying the firearm securely in a place that you've presented from and practiced drawing from, so that if there's a threat, you can respond appropriately. But until there's one, you're not walking around pointing the firearm at family or a neighbor or your dog. You don't want to have that firearm in your hand if you don't have to. When you know you need it, of course, it's going to be ready to go and handy. If you are in the ready position, or if you're holstered, you're still going to be using this flashlight with one hand. And again, we want to use it intermittently and indirectly. Remember, the idea is not to take the flashlight and project it straight ahead of you and just walk around flashing it like a bad B-movie security guard. You see that white hot spot in the center? If we stare at that and then turn this light off, now we're going to be practically blind again in the dark. Not to mention the fact that 3 rooms away, if we're just walking around with a light like this, everyone knows we're coming and everyone can see the angle. We may want to use that darkness to our advantage to be able to move through the house that we know to get out or to check on our family before we've identified the exact location of a potential intruder or threat. Of course, all these other things that you've got maybe laid out, your watch, your wallet, take what you need, but don't take anything extra. The phone, again, is a great idea to have here, and notice that we're charging it next to our bed. We're not charging it back in the kitchen or at the front door. We're going to have it here handy so that we can keep it in the middle of the night, use it if we need it, and of course keep it with us as we move through the house or as we exit. Right now what we're going to do is assume that the exit, safe room, or the rest of the family that we need to check on are somewhere other than in here. I've made my call if I know there's a threat. If I don't know there's a threat, I'm just going to keep the phone with me. I've got my flashlight. I'm prepared to respond with lethal force if I need to, but I'm not going to until I have to. I'm going to go check on the kids. Now, as I'm moving through the house, I'm not shining this flashlight ahead of me again, as we talked about before. I'm using it intermittently and indirectly. I'm bouncing it off the floor or off the walls to check dark spots or just find my way as I go through. Also, by keeping it intermittent and indirect, I'm not projecting my path to anybody who might be waiting for me around the corner. Of course, the advantage you have in your home is that it's your home and you know the layout. I know, for instance, coming through this opening, that there's a hallway that goes to the left through a doorway that winds out into the kitchen and to the back door. This way, there's really not much space. It's a dead corner that goes down a hallway I can already look down. So the most likely area for a threat, if I'm to encounter one going through this doorway, I know is going to be to the left. So I'm going to cheat myself over here away from this corner, so that if someone were to be waiting right here, it would be hard for them to grab me or take my flashlight, take my firearm if I had it out, or engage me in any way without some type of warning. I'm going to come to this side as I come through. Now remember, I have no real reason to believe that I'm going to need to use a firearm at this point. I've just heard something that caused me to be curious about what's going on in my house. So as I come through this area, if I do find someone and see someone who's not supposed to be in my house, or just see a body or even the shoulder, an arm, or a shadow, my awareness is immediately heightened to the fact that I may have a threat in the house. Whether I draw my firearm or not is going to depend on exactly what that indication is. But when I see a full-size human being in the house, and maybe the only other person who's supposed to be here is my daughter or some other child, or maybe someone who's supposed to be at the other end of the house, this may cause me to go to what we call the staged position. Now I've got my hand on the firearm in the holster. I haven't drawn it. I'm certainly not going to point it at anyone until I know they're a threat. But at this point, I have found someone, and I need to use the flashlight to identify them and see whether or not they are a threat. Clearly now I see a firearm and I see extension at this point, and notice that I'm not shining the light at the person. I'm not telling the person exactly where I am. I'm not looking into that bright, hot, white spot, because then if that flashlight goes out, I can't see anything. So I'm bouncing the light off the floor. I'm obviously going to draw my firearm, and in this case, I would tell the person to get back and stop, and if they didn't immediately, I would extend, touch, and press. And notice that the flashlight is not lined up with what I'm seeing. I have plenty of light to be able to see and engage that target intuitively at this distance. I can take the shots, get combat accurate hits, and hopefully stop the threat very, very quickly. I don't need to do any magic, super two-handed flashlight technique at this distance. I don't need any more light than I've got to see that person and to accurately be able to stop them from being a threat. I did, however, need more light to identify them as a threat. And it's important to remember the difference. Finding and identifying people in the house may require the flashlight, but we have plenty of light to be able to engage the target if we need to. Let's assume that he's not there, and let's continue to think about how we'd move through the house. Again, if my firearm's in the holster, I'm moving through exactly the same way as my firearm is in my hand. As I come through this area, I want to be able to react to anything I find here. If I have the gun in my hand, of course that means I'm pointing it in some direction, keeping it down low if there's other people in the house, family members. Maybe a neighbor came into the house because they needed help and they had no option but to break down my door to get my attention to help them with a critical incident they were having. Well, I certainly wouldn't want to point my gun at them. So keeping it in close, or again, keeping it in that holster is a great option until you know there's a threat. If I were to come through and actually encounter someone in this area, I have plenty of reaction time because I came wide. What I wouldn't want to do is come around very close to this corner and not be able to slice that pie, it's very easy for him to grab me or strike me before I'm able to actually react. So I want to be out here and create that space. And now, when I see that person moving towards me, I have room to react. Even if I have my firearm out, it's going to be almost impossible for him to reach this firearm if he tries to grab for it without me being able to pull it out of the way and block. I may not be in the best position here to fight. Certainly he could still hit me, he could grab me, he can do those things, but I've managed to maintain my firearm retention, and I'll certainly be able to use it if this continues to become a more lethal threat as he pushes or attacks me and comes in. If I have no other option, I'm in a position where I can start to shoot to significantly affect his ability to present a lethal threat. So if you happen to find somebody...
Buddy, I need to borrow your phone, my house is on fire.
It may not automatically be a threat. Of course, it may or may not be appropriate for someone to break into your house and come in and ask for your phone or ask for help, but the reality is you're responsible for this firearm. You're responsible for your safety, the safety of your family, but you're also responsible for not shooting someone that doesn't need to be shot. Did he make some mistakes? Does he need to be here? Should he have done this in a different way? Probably. But the reality is, if his house is on fire, he's worried about his family, he's worried about his belongings, he may break in. He may be desperate for help. Or it could be a family member that was wandering through the house looking for a glass of milk. Just because you hear something in the middle of the night doesn't mean you need to shoot someone. You need to be very careful when you're moving through a low-light situation to use your flashlight to find and identify what's going on. Now at this point, I've left the bedroom, I've heard a loud noise, and I'm going to check on the kids. I've put the firearm in the holster, I've got it on my hip. What I'm going to do now is continue to use my flashlight intermittently and indirectly as I move through the house. It would probably be at about this point coming down the hall that I realize there's a light on in the living room, and I hear some noise. Certainly doesn't justify me drawing my gun in this case, but I'm going to be a little more alert and a lot more disciplined with this light. Now, as I approach, I can see the damage to the door. My front door is damaged. I'm going to draw my firearm, keeping it in the ready position. Before I come through into this room where I hear the noise and I see the light, and I see that clearly this door has been damaged, probably kicked in or smashed in, this is now a much more serious situation. If I didn't have kids, if I didn't have a reason to be in this house, I'd be right out this door, or preferably right out the back door, on the phone with the police, explaining to them what's going on. But at this point, if I hear noise and I know my kid's room is right around this corner, I'm going to check and see what's going on. Always staying away from the corner, slicing the pie as I come out until I've found and identified a threat. Now, I want to make a point before we deal with the rest of this scenario and we actually deal with the fact that this door is kicked in and I'm going to have to go over here and deal with this noise down by my kids' room. And I want to show you what that approach to this danger area would have looked like if I'd have had my flashlight on the whole time and just stuck it out in front of me as I walk down the hall. And you'll see what I mean. Imagine you're the perspective of the guy that kicked that door in. So how much warning did you have? How well did you know exactly what was going to happen? Even if we hadn't set it up and you hadn't been watching, you could clearly see that having the flashlight on all the time, pointing directly in front of you, is a really good way to let everybody know just about exactly when you're coming through that doorway, if they're waiting in ambush. Now the fact that I see this door has been broken in and that I hear some kind of activity inside of this room, I'm going to make my presence known to this person, try to figure out what's going on. If I need to, obviously I'm going to be stopping whatever it is they need to do. But the fact that I'm going to bring myself to their attention and I'm going to try to get as much information as I can on what's going on in that room, I'm not going to worry about the flashlight. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the light on. Stop! Stay down. It's okay! Stay in the room! Stay in the room! At this point, he left me no choice but to shoot. As I told him to stop, he looked up towards me and started to pull a gun and point it towards me. He didn't listen to me when I said stop. I had to shoot. I had to use lethal force. I used cover as best I could. I used good intuitive shooting principles, full extension, looking through the gun, focusing on the threat. He just went down. I don't know if he's going to get back up. I don't know if he's still got the gun in his hand. I can't see any of that from here. The first thing I have to do is calm my family down, make sure my child knows that I'm here, everything's okay, and she should stay in the room. Stay in the room! Do not come out! Go back by the bed! I know the layout of my house, so it's important that I know where she is, because shooting a firearm inside the house can be very dangerous to people on the other side of these interior house walls. If I know where she is, which in this case is back in that corner by the bed, then it doesn't have to affect my ability to negate this threat if he were to stand up over here in front of that side of the room. Again, if he were to start moving, if I saw that hand, stay down! Stay down! Do not move. If you try to get up, I will consider it a threat. I will shoot you. Okay, you have to articulate all of these things to that potential threat. If he doesn't understand clearly that you're about to use lethal force again, he may stand up inadvertently and cause you to be in fear of your life again, and then you're going to have to shoot. At this point, very quickly after the shot, once the target is down and no longer an immediate threat, and I've made sure my family is safe and that they understand they need to stay in the room, I'm going to go right to the cell phone, 911. Explain to that operator who I am, where I am, and what's happened. I'm going to make sure she knows what I'm wearing, where I am in relation to the doors of the house, where the bad guy is and what he's wearing, and maybe even where other family members are. Again, if he starts to move, stay down! Stay there! Do not move! If you move, I will consider it a threat. I will use force if I have to. Now I've said this again in front of the 911 operator, and that's been recorded. This could be incredibly important later in the aftermath of this critical incident. Hey, you, stop! Stop! Get away from that door! Get back! Stay down! Stay down! Are you okay? Come up, come out. Come to me. Stay down! Don't move! Let me see your other hand. Bring it out slowly. Slowly! Stay there. Do not move. In this situation, I had someone in the house heading towards my child's room that I couldn't identify as a lethal threat. Not only did I not want to shoot him, but I don't want to shoot towards my child's room unless I have to. In this situation, I was able to get him away from the door, keeping my firearm safely away from him, ready to use it if I needed to. I can see his hands. He's not posing a threat. The most important thing I have to do is get my family out to safety. Come on, move to the door. Move out. Once I'm out, I'll contact the authorities and stay safe. There's no reason for me to spend any more time in this house. Hey, stop! Drop the knife! Drop the knife!
Whoa, whoa.
Get down on your knees.
Relax there.
You just stay right there. Do not move. Stay in the room. Stay in your room. Get near your bed. At this point, I've got to be ready for almost anything. He's dropped the knife. He's listened to me. He seems to be compliant. I've told my child to get back into the corner of the room that's away from the angle I might have to shoot. I can take a one-handed shot here if that's the only option I have, but I want to be ready to take a two-handed shot just in case I need to. If my daughter were to come out of the room, raising my perceived penalty for a miss, or if he were to actually get a hold of her and turn this into a hostage situation, I certainly wouldn't want to be taking any one-handed quick shots. If he makes a move for that knife, I'm going to be ready to use lethal force. I've made that clear to him. At this point, I'm going to stay right where I can see the door to my child's room as well as the intruder. And of course, this is the time I'm going to get on the phone and call the authorities. I'm going to make that 911 call and explain to them exactly what's going on, where I am, who I am, and what's going on. If he makes a move towards that knife, I'll consider him a threat and use lethal force if that's my only option. If he makes a move towards the door of my child's room, with or without the knife, I'm still going to have to take action. I can't just stand here and watch that situation develop. This could be one of the most tense encounters you could possibly imagine, especially if you haven't prepared for it. Thinking about what it's going to be like to use verbal commands, to tell that person what to do, to keep their hands plainly visible, to clearly articulate, especially while that phone's open and you're talking to the 911 operator, to clearly articulate the fact that if he moves, you're going to consider it a lethal threat and you may need to use your firearm. All of these things are vitally important. It's very important that you train and think about how you're going to handle a compliant intruder that no longer poses a threat but needs to be kept under watch and under control until the authorities can arrive. Stay there. As we've seen, applying the skill sets that we're learning for personal defense in the home can be challenging. I hope you got something out of today's home defense tips.
Thanks for watching this edition of the Personal Firearm Defense DVD series. Practice the tactics and training drills you've just learned at your favorite shooting range, and you're going to gain the confidence and skills you need to effectively protect yourself with your firearm. Remember to check and understand the firearm laws in your area, especially as they relate to personal protection and concealed carry. See you next time.